On this edition, I'm going to break down and predict the upcoming fight on the UFC 155 card between Chris Weidman and Tim Boetsch. Now, I'd say the interesting thing about this fight is the fact that both fighters are at the top of the division, and the winner could potentially get a title shot to face Anderson Silva, or maybe they'll fight Michael Bisping. The winner of this fight will fight Michael Bisping. So there's a bunch of different variations of what could happen considering the middleweight title picture and everybody thinking that they're worthy of a title shot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from this fight. But the entertainment value of this fight, you have two good wrestlers, guys with good striking game and toughness, so it should be a very entertaining fight. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to break down both fighters. I'm going to do my predictions. So I'll start with Tim Boetsch. Now, Tim Boetsch is a Jeet Kune Do practitioner. He also has a good wrestling background, well-accomplished collegiate wrestler. And Tim Boetsch's stand-up game, now, he's not the most gifted athlete. He doesn't have the best footwork or electrifying hand speed or incredible pop in his step, but what he makes up for that is his toughness. You can never count out Tim Boetsch, and he's continually aggressive and in your face, and he has a very tough guy to put away. Now, he has a 74-inch reach. He has a huge reach disadvantage in this fight against Chris Weidman, but what he does is he has good leg kicks. He's a dynamic striker. He can utilize every single asset that he does have. He utilizes his legs, his knees, his elbows, and his hands, and he likes to mix them up. He keeps you guessing with his strikes. He likes to come forward. We saw in the Lombard fight, he came forward. He liked to kick the lead leg of Lombard. He could kick the legs. He could kick the body. He could kick the head. He can incorporate his hands and his elbows. He could fight well in the clinch. He can pop forward and mix up a couple of combinations. He's not so much a combination striker, but he could come forward and really give you the business. He's got good power in his hands. He's a big guy for the division, considering he dropped down from light heavyweight. He's got very good power in his hands, whether it's in the stand-up or in the ground and pound department. I think the best part of his stand-up is his knees, his ability to come forward in the clinch, or whether it's just coming forward and moving forward in the pocket. He loves to throw his knees. We saw the cut he put on Hamill in the light heavyweight division, just an absolutely devastating cut because of his knees. He loves pushing forward, and those knees have bad intentions written all over them, just absolutely devastating. I love how he mixes them up in his stand-up game. In regards to his ground game, Boetsch has a good wrestling game. He can take down fighters. Not so much that he's explosive and has an incredible power double, but he can take guys down with his technique. He has good ground control. He has good ground and pound and can posture up and can keep fighters down on the ground. He can submit fighters as well. He has a good guillotine choke. I'd say the one question mark is his takedown defense. Now, he is a good wrestler, but we've seen his wrestling game get exploited before in the past, especially against Phil Davis, a very exceptional wrestler in the light heavyweight division. A couple things in regards to Boetsch. I don't think he's the faster fighter in this fight. He may be the more dynamic striker. He's not faster. He has a huge reach disadvantage in this fight. He has been submitted before. His chin has been tested before. He is a tough guy, but can he finish this fight against Chris Weidman? Will his power match up and test the chin of Weidman? So where I see Tim Boetsch being successful in this fight, I think Tim Boetsch needs to keep this fight standing. I would not try and get in a grappling match or a wrestling match with Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman takes wrestlers' games and he sticks it right back in their face. Nobody's had really an answer for his wrestling yet. But I would try and keep this fight standing, and I would try and test Weidman's chin. I would let the hands go. I would press forward, get inside the pocket, put Weidman out of his comfort zone with his long reach, and try and connect with that chin. So the way I see Boetsch winning this fight, he's got to finish it. If it goes to the decision, I think Weidman's wrestling will outmatch Boetsch's, and if it goes to the decision, I see Weidman winning this one. But if Boetsch is to win this fight, it's got to be via TKO or knockout. He's got to press forward. He's got to find the chin of Chris Weidman. So that's where I see Tim Boetsch being successful. So Chris Weidman, a lot of people consider him the top contender, especially after his dominant performance over Mark Munoz. It was what we would call a flawless performance. He outclassed Mark Munoz in the stand-up, in the wrestling, and he outworked him the entire fight. It was just a flawless performance. In regards to Chris Weidman's stand, he's training with Ray Longo, his Muay Thai and his boxing. He's got, I'd say it's pretty crisp striking. He's got good speed. I'd say he's the faster striker in this fight. He has a huge reach advantage in this fight. He has an 82-inch reach, big reach for the division, especially at middleweight. And he's also a big guy for the division as well. With his reach, with his size, just a big, broad body. And with his stand-up, he can mix up and utilize his combinations. I think the elbows that he was utilizing against Mark Munoz, just how he finished that fight, changing from a straight strike to the elbow. I think a lot of it had to do with his timing as well. He has good timing in his strikes, and I love that he was starting to incorporate more leg kicks into his stand-up game. I don't want to say that he's a knockout artist, but his stand-up continues to come a long way, and he does have good power in his hands, but he's not a knockout artist just yet. But the part of his game that really shines is wrestling. Chris Weidman was a standout wrestler at Hofstra. He has a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Matt Serra, and he can take down the best. We have not seen somebody just out-grapple Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman's grappling is for real, and he can take his grappling and match it up against practically anybody. That's how good it is. He has good takedowns. He can take you down in the clinch. He can throw you down. He can slam you down. He can do it in a variety of ways. And when he gets down to the ground, he makes you work. He drags you into deep water. He postures up and beats you down with ground and pound, and he locks in submissions. His submission game is very underrated, especially for a purple belt. He locks guys into submission a variety of different ways, demoralizes you on the ground, makes you work, beats you up in the process. He's constantly working on the ground. So a couple things in regards to Chris Weidman. He has a big reach in this fight. I'd say that he's the faster fighter in this fight. I'd also say that he is the better grappler in this fight, given his wrestling and his submission ability. I think another factor is the fact that he is going to have a full training camp. He usually takes, in the past you've seen him take fights on short notice, and he has failed to finish fights in that department. But when he has a full training camp, Chris Weidman finishes fights. So where I see Chris Weidman being successful, he's got to disguise his takedowns and his ground game with his stand-up. He's got to keep Tim Boetsch honest and keep him guessing. But I think if he keeps it staying, I wouldn't flirt with Tim Boetsch's power. I know Weidman hasn't been finished before and he's undefeated, but I would get Tim Boetsch down to the ground and really test his wrestling. I would utilize my ground and pound. I'd continuously work. I'd drag Boetsch quote-unquote into deep water, but I put his back to the wall and let him know he's been in a fight. Get him down the ground, utilize ground and pound, and try and lock in the submission. So I think if Chris Weidman's to win this fight, I think it's going to be via submission on the ground. So that's where I see Chris Weidman being successful in this fight. So where my prediction lies, I think both fighters are going to get their shots. I think Boetsch is going to come out and look for the big shots early. He's going to try and utilize his movement to try and keep Weidman's takedowns at bay. But what I see it ultimately coming down to, I think Weidman's ground game cannot be denied. I see him getting Boetsch down to the ground. I see Boetsch having a lot of trouble with Chris Weidman's wrestling and his grappling game. And I see Chris Weidman locking in a submission and defeating Tim Boetsch via submission. So I'm going to take Chris Weidman defeating Tim Boetsch on the UFC 155 card via submission. And that's what I have for this edition. It's Kyle Delaney signing off. I'm out of here.